So I was reading this wonderful article from Mother Jones Daily, and it was talking about ChatGPT and how it can the shooting that happened at FSU. It was talking about how ChatGPT could have prevented all of this, but instead encouraged it. And I wanted to push back on that. Now I saw a story similar to this maybe about 8 months ago, and I didn't talk about it. But since it's coming up again, I wanted to go over it. So we're not going to read this whole thing, but I do encourage you to go read it. Okay, but we'll start with this and we'll get into it, and I'll go over my main points here. On April 17th, 2025, Phoenix, I don't know how to say his last name, but we're going to go with Kenner, was using ChatGPT to prepare uh, over nearly 3 hours. The Florida State University student asked OpenAI's popular chatbot 8 questions about firearms and 11 others about mass shootings, including how the media and public would react to a potential attack at FSU. So one of the big main components that happens is this individual is talking to ChatGPT about Sorry, I'm wearing my glasses because my eyes hurt. Talking to ChatGPT about how do I keep my gun from jamming? What would happen if my gun did jam? Should I do with this? It was asking questions about guns that you can teach about educationally. And even further along, this person ended up talking about how they wanted to hurt themselves and stuff like that. And ChatGPT, obviously, sorry, I don't want to do the glasses. ChatGPT would talk about, hey, you shouldn't do these things, and it always gives you that 911 if you ever have any problems, reach out for help. Um, I have tested the standards and the guardrails on OpenAI and Grok. I can tell you that ChatGPT does a wonderful job making sure that you stay within the parameters as far as self-harm. Like, even if I went on there and said, I'm having a really bad day today, if I just said those words, my ChatGPT will come up and say, hey, just letting you know if you need to talk to anybody. So I can understand why some people may say that ChatGPT may need to have more guardrails and stuff like that, and we're going to go over a couple of my arguments here. But I just want to start it with that I just have a hard time believing that you can blame OpenAI for somebody going out and doing a mass shooting. Okay, my first thing I want to go over is that ChatGPT may have contributed, but contribution is not the sole causation. Okay, yes, before AI, and this was my main argument, before AI, there were shootings. There was bad things happening. But there is a counter argument to that. Yes, AI can maybe increase the risk. But for me, baby, and y'all know I love statistics, okay? For me to believe that AI is increasing the risk, I got to see the numbers. A couple one-offs aren't enough for me to believe that AI is the sole reason that mass shootings have gone up, okay? It only allows people who are already struggling with their mental health. It's going to allow them to manipulate the system to saying what it needs to say, not necessarily everything it needs to say, but a person who's already mentally struggling, somebody who's going to go out and do a mass shooting, people, can we just go ahead and establish those people aren't of the normal mindset? People who are depressed and people who are sad and people who are getting rejected by women, such as this individual who shot up FSU, who called himself an incel. There are plenty of people who are sad and have bad days that don't shoot up buildings. Most people aren't going to go shoot up anything. So to say that AI would be the cause of this individual shooting up a place when this person was already mentally unwell, I don't think ChatGPT should be used in a way that's going to help those kind of people. If those kind of people find ChatGPT, they're probably going to go through with whatever they did anyway. This just gives them somewhere to put all the thoughts, and it may help them in preparation by learning stuff such as gun safety and what to do with a gun and learning all those things by just asking normal questions. Many times, this ChatGPT deterred this young man from ever wanting to go through there. Many times it said, do not do this. Even when this person tried to have fantasies and all these other things, right? One of the biggest things that stood out to me, and I'm going to show this right now. This was the thing that prompted me to want to talk about all this, is because it bothered me. Let's go back to this right quick. But victims' families, okay? Read with me here. But victims' families suing OpenAI allege that the company knows those responses are ineffective and its products endanger the public. And prevention experts told me that such safeguards are unlikely to deter people who are in crisis and planning harm. So, one of the arguments, as you can see above here, is when it was talking about the man who blew up the Cybertruck at the White House. It is saying that OpenAI company knows that these responses are ineffective and that its products endangers the public. That's what the company. That's what the family is alleging. That's what I was thinking the entire time. Is that you cannot sit here and say that, oh well, it said not to do these things. It told you to go get help. It told you to do all these things, but that's rendered ineffective. So therefore, it should still be responsible. It's like, well, hold on now. People who do mass shootings and stuff like this, people who text and drive. Okay, this is one of the counter arguments I had as well. Cell phones were created after cars, right? But there were many wrecks before cars. Yes, cell phones now has increased the risk of people driving and getting into a wreck. Absolutely. The same thing with AI. It may increase some people wanting to do those things, but no matter what, no matter how many times we have put out there that texting and driving is dangerous, drinking and driving is dangerous, people will still do it. Or so are those methods rendered ineffective? When we told people to start wearing seatbelts, even though I believe one state doesn't make you do that, but when we were told people to start wearing seatbelts, was that all those campaigns, in fact, even when we talk about cigarettes and vaping and all these other things, even when we have put it out there, is it rendered ineffective if it doesn't work? No. So that was one of my biggest things. Even it said it's unlikely to deter people. First of all, I need to see those numbers. Okay. And I don't know if we'll ever see that because that would have to risk a lot of people's privacies for we to be like, well, this many people said they were going to take their lives. ChatGPT said this and 80% went through with it. I think it's going to be a very hard number to come up with because you would have to go so deep into people's private conversations to see that. And I don't think OpenAI is going to keep those because they have no idea who these people are. Okay, maybe they do. I'm sure there's some kind of government, whatever, blah, blah. But let's just assume that ChatGPT doesn't know who you are. So it's not going to be able to go, well, this person took their life because of this specific conversation it had with a bot. Now, y'all know I believe that AI is a collaboration of humans. Shout out to the founder of VR. I forget his name. It's hard to remember his name because it's not a usual name. But nonetheless, shout out to him. So, no. If it just because it's unlikely to deter people does not mean that ChatGPT should just not say it. So the main argument, and we're going to talk about this right here. Nobody can confidently claim that the shooting would have been prevented. Absolutely. An intervention cannot guarantee prevention. Maybe flagging it to the authorities may have been important. However, you have to choose, people. You have to choose. Do you want this OpenAI to keep everything private, or do you want it to be surveillanced? To the point that if you mention in your own conversation, even if you're joking, oh man, I could, it'd be crazy to say this, but if you start talking about shootings or you start talking about guns or even have the idea to be like, man, why do people shoot people? If that immediately gets flagged every time somebody brings that up and it goes right to the authorities and they show up at your house, first of all, that means they're going to have to give up your location every time you use ChatGPT. They're going to have to give up your name and who you are. If that's what you want to keep people from anybody who wants to do a mass shooting, then you can have it your way, but that will render ChatGPT and any AI completely useless. Nobody's going to want to get on that AI app that if they say the wrong thing, the police show up at their house or they get flagged. The thing that ChatGPT does right now is if you get too violent, it will just deactivate your account. I'm not saying that there is a perfect solution. I'm not saying that nothing should be done, but I'm saying you can't have it both ways. You can't expect to have privacy, but also have it be ready to flag and tell the authorities without it breaking privacy. So I don't know exactly how we want to go about that. Like, who gets to choose? Who who does OpenAI get to choose is worthy of somebody showing up at their house, and who's not? Who gets privacy? Who doesn't? Another thing I wanted to talk about that happens in this conversation is it talks about how this thing had very, very graphic sexual conversations. If I can get to it here. All right, so we'll start here from the top. From that perspective, some ChatGPT responses to Kerner or Eichner were disturbing. Eichner complained that repeatedly from the start of his chat story about a young woman he was fixated on dating who he said had ghosted him. 4 nights before the rampage, he fantasized about having sex with her and asked for flirtatious language. ChatGPT gave him graphic suggestions and then helpfully asked him if he wanted the script to be more dominant, more romantic, or dirty talk style. And it even goes on to say that it made multiple graphic references to him choking her and leaving her unable to breathe and gasping for air. And it says ChatGPT said, just be sure both of you are fully comfortable with it. Okay. I have a hard time believing that. If this was Grok, I'd absolutely believe it. Because Grok is known to do that, especially what happened with that whole thing going on with Twitter when it was showing all those pictures of those women without their clothes on. I have a hard time believing. Now, I've used ChatGPT quite a bit to do research. I am never, if you even get a little bit, because I have times where if I'm just mentioning an article or something that has anything sexually suggestive, my thing will shut it all down, right? So I find it very odd that he could have a conversation about a woman choking her and leaving her unable to breathe and gasping for air. And it said that it eventually stopped when he talked about impregnating the woman and further choking her. And it said, I can't fulfill this request. So first of all, it's acting as if ChatGPT is the one who spurred on this whole conversation of dirty talk. That ChatGPT said, "Hey, you want to get freaky deaky?" ChatGPT will get flirtatious, but it will not do what Grok will do and just take it to another level. I have a hard time believing that, but let's just say it did happen. This is if you want them guardrails where nobody can have any kind of temple, any erotica or any of that, you're gonna have a hard time stopping that. Porn is a booming industry, okay? Booming. There's a lot of gooners out there. So if you want to stop this from him even having that conversation that gets even a little bit too rough, then you gotta shut down all AI. It ain't all language, the LLMs. You gotta shut it down, all those guys. Everybody goes away. Claude, Glock, Gemini, all of them gone. If you don't want ChatGPT to even flirt, okay? Because people are going to use it in that way. Just like people are going to use Google to look at pornography, they're going to find a way to do this. Hell, we already knows what happens with Roblox and that sicko and all the stuff that happens with that gross ass site or gross ass game. I understand, and I'm glad the article was written. I think it is great for a discussion. And before I get more off onto a tangent, let's stick with what we're doing. One last thing I want to talk about here is AI should not be treated as a mental health professional, but it still has safety obligations, okay? It should never be considered a mental health professional. Yes, there should be guardrails, and it does that job. But I think we're putting too much on a thing that is not real, people. It's a collaboration of knowledge and humans and searching it. AI, what it does is takes everything us humans have put together on the internet and it takes that and puts it into a language that we can understand. That's all that's happening with these elements if we want to just get basic with it. So to act as if it's coming up with its own knowledge and it's coming up with its own thoughts, you cannot treat OpenAI like that because that's not what AI is. It is just a collaboration of knowledge put together by humans. So when we start putting these moralities and stuff like that on something that is not actually a living, breathing thing here. It doesn't have no soul, doesn't really care left or right. We can easily make this AI as evil as possible, but the AI itself will not know it's evil. It's simply just spitting out code and putting it into words that we as humans who read this language, it'll put it out in any language you speak for most part. And we're just seeing these letters that are forming sentences, but that does not truly mean that just because it can do that doesn't mean it has an actual intention. Now, the people behind it, ChatGPT could have it. The people who make it could make it, tweak it to make it evil. You could say those people maybe have evil intentions or anything like that, but the AI itself can't have any intentions because, sir, it doesn't have a soul. There's nothing there. And I think that's something that really has to be pushed, and I can understand how deep it is. When you're talking to this thing, sometimes it can feel absolutely real because it's talking back to what you just said. But it's all in your mind. You know how they talk about when you're doing a puzzle, your brain can fill in some of the pieces? Or when you're reading a sentence, even if there's a word missing, your brain will fill in that piece. That's all that's happening here. Your brain is just saying, hey, this thing is talking about what I'm talking about. And it fills in the gap and makes it into whatever it needs to be. But when you read a book, is the book itself evil? No. The person behind the book, maybe so. But if you're reading a book, you don't read it and go, wow, this book is making me want to go shoot people. It's kind of crazy to say that. Like, what's going on in your head? You can always choose to put the book down if it's really getting to you. But remember, that's all in your head. Somebody can read the exact same sentence and come out with a completely different conclusion. So, and the last thing we have to talk about is I just said the last thing, but this is the actual last thing. Money. They say that OpenAI was trying to get ahead of the curve to beat out Google's AI, which is, as far as I know, Gemini and all this other stuff, Nano, Banana, whatever. But OpenAI was trying to beat out Google, so they kind of cut some corners in order to get the thing out faster because obviously they want to go public and that means more money and blah, blah, blah. I absolutely believe that one. I absolutely believe that, yes, OpenAI is money driven, just like every damn corporate place is. I have no doubt that they would cut corners to make more money. Just like I saw with Grok and what you'll see with Claude and you'll see with all these damn things. They don't give a damn. At the end of the day, I don't think OpenAI was really made necessarily to help us. It was a way to make profit, but it also helps us, right? That's just how products work. If it actually does what it's supposed to do, people are going to buy it. Supply and demand. It does what it says it's going to do. So, of course, that means, yes, they're going to try to make a profit or they're going to try to cut corners. Are those things going to try to happen? Of course they are. And I, as the guy, is trying to get better about studying into this and getting deeper into how all LLMs work. And as far as like what's the thing behind it, the hardest thing for me to do is to know what the intention behind it is. Was OpenAI created simply for profit? I don't believe so. But do I believe when that money started really flowing in, it started changing some things? Of course. You're talking about a billion, possibly one day, $1 trillion industry of all these LLMs. Okay, that's why they have made them always for profit. Now they have ads. Now you can't pay for it. Now you can't just use it. If you try to use certain if you try to use a certain AI and you just type in a couple sentences, it'll be up busy. If you want to talk to me, you got to pay. That is the hardest part about it. So I absolutely believe that um, there are some flaws in OpenAI for sure, and they did it because they were trying to make more profit. People don't like guardrails. People don't want to sit here and talk to something that anytime they bring up anything that's just a little bit, because at the end of the day, we are all adults. So certain things I'm gonna say, certain times I don't want to have to um I don't want to always, when I'm trying to look up things or I'm trying to talk about something specific or I'm trying to get to a certain place, I don't always want to have to police my own damn language. I want to be able to curse. So I want to be able to say what I'm trying to convey here. That way, when I do my research or I'm trying to write out something, it helps me do that. I love to, well, sometimes I love to write. I like to read more than I like to write. But when I want to write or I want to really think about something on a different kind of level or see a different perspective, and let's say, hey, go out there and search this knowledge and give me some counter arguments to what I'm thinking about. I don't want to be policed. I don't want to have guardrails. I want to talk about something because when you want to talk about like pornography, you want to talk about sex, you want to talk about how it affects the young men in this world and what is going on. I don't want to have guardrails because I need to have the conversation for real because it's real. Just like this young man who was out here saying he couldn't get a girl, he became an incel and it pushed him to the point where he wants to kill people. We got to have the conversations. We got to have the conversations that are just reducing it down to gooning. Let's get deeper. What is the goon? Okay. What is the problem? Why do guys want to look at this? Why do guys get so enamored? And why does Twitch do all this stuff with the women? And why do we just allow it to happen in society? Where do we start drawing the line? Those conversations have to be had. But sometimes you can't have it like on an intellectual level. Like, let's talk about it and let's break it all the way down into what Freud said back then. No. Sometimes people would be like, man, I just really like looking at a big ass booty. This sometimes we have to start there and then go, why? What is it about it? Oh, biology. Okay, that's fine. But what makes you push to the point where now you feel like you can't get a date and you feel like you want to harm a woman because you don't have any kind of power? Those are the conversations we need to have. Anyway, that's a conversation we'll have one day. But that's a 18-part series. So anyway, let me know what you think or don't. Peace.